10 brings you more premiere crime time viewing with the brand new Sensing Murder now.
Sunday is
A premiere for the mind.
The psychics will retrace Sarah's last steps and hunt for her killer.
Coming up next, a new crime-solving revolution, Sensing Murder. The following program is classified M. It contains some coarse language, some violence, and adult themes. Channel 10 recommends viewing by mature audiences.
On the 11th of July 1990, Sarah McDiarmid relaxed into her seat on the night train headed home. It was to be her last journey. Minutes after getting off at Cannonook station, Sarah walked into an isolated car park and disappeared. Her body has never been found. Despite an intensive police investigation, what happened to Sarah that night still remains a mystery. Now, two psychics will lead a team of private investigators in a new search. Using their remarkable gifts, the psychics will retrace Sarah's last steps, search for her body, and hunt for her killer.
I just feel she was in the wrong place at the wrong time. There's something to do with the car now they're showing me. They didn't get to their final destination.
Sarah's disappearance is described by police as a complete mystery.
We're just praying that she is still alive.
It was my belief then, it still is, that Sarah was murdered.
I dread to think what happened at night. I wasn't there for it.
The investigation's main focus was to find Sarah. Anywhere a body could be conceivably disposed of, we searched.
With 14 years down the track, you want to really look at anything.
The energy is getting quite strong now.
She's just telling me I was snatched.
I think I know where she is. It'll fall into place as we get further.
My team has been investigating the psychic's leads, and we've uncovered some new evidence.
This is where the police need to look, is here. There's probably a serial killer involved or someone who was killed before. Yeah, that's it. That's exactly right. That's exactly how I see it.
Sarah was a mix of things. She loved her work. As a kid, she was good fun, and probably got it from me. Well, let's say it's from me. And she had a good going spirit, normal child.
Sarah and I, we always were very close. As we grew up, it was a very a close brother-sister relationship. Sarah wouldn't think anything of buying a jacket for me, or if there was a concert or something or other, she'd buy a ticket. She was very kind in that regard.
Sarah really just enjoyed all types of music. She liked fiddle music. I mean, you could hear her from the room. Sometimes she would go to her bedroom. It might be the tin whistle she had out because she just liked that, or the recorder, or her fiddle.
Sarah was strong. She was full of mischief, which I think she got from her mother. And she was very, very witty, which she gets from her father. She was always good for an argument, formed opinions carefully, and then defended them vehemently. She was a born Aussie. She just loved Australia. She loved the open, she loved the animals, the climate.
She just loved toing and froing, and she loved family life, and she loved sport when she was a child. But as she got older, she kept that up. Really, probably mainly tennis when she was older. Don't know that Sarah was good, but she loved her tennis.
Family were very important to Sarah. We were such a close family, the four of us, and it's something that I've never really spoken much about until just recently. And I think it's because it's such a long time now, and because you're getting older, you just really want to know where she is and have her back. Because as a mum, with how she was born and having to watch her have injections when she was in that incubator, I couldn't cuddle her, I couldn't, because as I say, it was a different way in those days. And you just sort of think, I dread to think that night what happened, and I wasn't there for her.
Laurie Ratz, detective in charge of the Frankston CIB, led the investigation into Sarah's disappearance.
I really don't know what happened to Sarah on that night, other than, again, sticking with the facts. Sarah came back to Kananook from the city on the train with some workmates. They travelled with her on the train as far as Bond Beach and got off, and Sarah went on from Bond Beach to Kananook. Ironically, as I understand it, Sarah would normally have caught a taxi home or not caught a late train, but that was as late a train as she felt comfortable getting. She got off the train at Kananook. It was an area frequented by drug users and small-time drug traffickers. She walked into a poorly lit car park towards her car, which would have been one of the few cars left. At the car, she was accosted and assaulted. The facts would indicate that her body, be it dead or alive, was then taken across to the grass verge, which was adjacent to where her car was parked. The facts would indicate that her body lay on the grass for a considerable amount of time. She was then taken from there to a place that we don't know.
I was at home at that point. I'd come back from uni earlier that day. Obviously, as the evening wore on, we were starting to get a bit worried because she was a very punctual person. So I went down to Kananook railway station, and by that time of the evening it was the only car in the car park. You don't think that the worst could have happened, so you went to bed that night worried but still not pressing any panic buttons until obviously the morning, where it got hit big time.
She didn't come home last night. I've been up all night.
Mum, she rang Sarah's work.
Can you go and get Gavin?
The people she travelled with on the train, Gavin and Di, had turned up for work.
Gavin, is Sheila McDiarmid? When you got off the train, was she with you?
No, she wasn't. Obviously, you know, Sarah was not there. That's when it was not a good scene. Mum, Sheila, was in a very bad way. I rang Dad at work, and
and I could hear Sheila screaming in the background, and I thought, oh, holy dooly. So I leapt in the car and just came straight back down the beach road. Checked in 2 or 3 other places like Seaford, and I checked at Kananook. What really bugs me is that I must have walked round the car, just like the first uniformed police, seen what I thought was rusty water, and a terrible thing to think you might have walked in your own daughter's blood.
Next to her car, there was a large stain on the ground that he confirmed was a reasonably large amount of blood. Over to the side of the car park was a grass verge with some shrubbery. We could see where the heels of a person were dragged across that grass area, and we also located near there another large amount of fluid that later turned out to be blood. There was one other item that was located there that at a later stage we were able to conclusively identify belonged to Sarah, but as far as anywhere else in the scene, nothing. That indicates to me someone with the presence of mind to dispose of a body in such a way as to make it very, very difficult for investigators to follow the track.
Sarah's disappearance is described by police as a complete mystery.
We have grave fears for her safety.
We're just praying that she is still alive.
Initially, the investigation's main focus was to find Sarah. We looked in drains, we looked up and down the Kananook Creek, we searched the beach areas, we searched vacant land, we searched parkland. Anywhere a body could be conceivably disposed of, we searched. But as time went on, when it became more apparent to us that it was more probable that she was dead, we were looking for a body. I'm still about 90% comfortable that we did as much as we could, but certainly areas with industrial waste bins and things like that that didn't get searched, looking back on hindsight and thinking, oh, if we did it again, I'd do this or do that. But certainly at the time I was comfortable. When we started to look at who was around, it wasn't a deserted car park by any stretch of the imagination. There was a number of suspects. We had witnesses who said that they saw some drunken males in the car park. The drunken males were never identified. There was a female who came in early in the investigation, a woman by the name of Jodie Jones. Jodie was supposed to have spoken to a number of people about the killing. She was a person of some evil reputation, but there was nothing that really came out of this group of people who were allegedly with her. Paul Denyer was a callous psychopathic killer who stalked 3 innocent women, took them off the street and callously murdered each of them. The bodies of each of those women were all recovered. The only difference, I think, with Sarah McDiarmid was that we never found Sarah.
After 14 years, there are still no answers to Sarah's disappearance. In a moment, 2 psychics will use the dimensions of the spirit world to return to the night of July 11th. According to Police Chief, the prestigious law enforcement magazine, individuals with bona fide psychic ability offer a unique and potentially valuable investigative skill. However, not all police departments embrace psychics' abilities, as was the case in California when a nurse disappeared. After hearing a radio news broadcast, mother of 3 Etta Smith had a psychic vision. She saw the nurse's body lying in a rural area in Lopez Canyon. Etta contacted the Los Angeles Police Department and led detectives directly to the nurse's body. Etta was taken into custody, questioned for 10 hours and arrested for suspicion of murder. She was released 4 days later when a man confessed to the killing. To assist in the Sarah McDiarmid case, 100 psychics from across the country were individually tested. 2 obscure murders were chosen for the testing procedure. Presented with only a photograph of the victim, the psychics were asked to provide details of the crime, the location and killer. Of the 100 psychics tested, only 5 were able to describe intimate details in both test cases. 2 of these, Debbie Malone and Scott Russell Hill, have been chosen to investigate the Sarah McDiarmid case. Debbie Malone's psychic ability began when she started seeing visions of murders in her sleep. For the last 12 years, she has assisted the New South Wales Police Department in their missing persons investigations.
Spirit photography is something that I took up a number of years ago. I started my life as a skeptic, and because I can see spirit and I can't show other people, I thought it'd be wonderful to be able to prove it. And all it is just having a feeling of where a spirit is and taking a photograph.
That's it. That's it. This is the one.
Scott Russell Hill is the author of several best-selling books and appears regularly on television and radio.
This is the kind of housing that I've seen in my dream too.
Most of his visions play out in his dreams, like many movies.
The source of the information, I believe, is that let's treat the spirit world like an FM radio signal. If you're listening to AM radio, you can't listen to the FM stations, the music that's happening. So the source of the information, let's call it the FM spirit world, is circling around me all the time. I'm just tuning into it. I'm just like a radio receiver.
In regards to psychics helping with Sarah's case, I've got an open mind.
And if it's brought forward without any prompting or guessing, and it sounds feasible and it's new, certainly I'm willing to listen to it.
With 14 years down the track, I think you want to really look at anything.
You have to keep an open mind for everything, and I'm just hoping somebody somewhere can help. And if it's the psychics, well, that's great.
I wouldn't personally hold out a great deal with a psychic, although I'd feel reasonably compelled to follow what they said.
Psychics tell us that we all have intuitive abilities. One tool psychics use are synchronicities, or signs. Carl Jung, the famous Swiss psychologist, first coined the term synchronicity, which he described as a meaningful coincidence. You think of someone for the first time in years and then bump into them on the street. You open a book to a random page and find the solution to your problem. According to Jung, we're surrounded by signs every day. Jung suggests that if you bump into someone who you were thinking about, it's a sign. Stop and talk to them. They have a message for you. Signs will play an instrumental part in tonight's investigation. Debbie and Scott have been told they're working on an unsolved murder, but they have not been given any details of the case or the people involved. The psychics have been flown from interstate to minimise exposure to the case. The psychics have never met. They've been kept separate from each other at all times, and the production team gave no responses during the readings. The only thing Debbie is given is a violin belonging to the victim.
I'd say early 20s. She's telling me that she worries Mum's worried, so that's been the hardest thing. Someone's got heart problems or broken heart, so because I feel like I'm getting a real tightness in my chest.
Sarah had a serious heart condition as a child.
She's worrying about a bag. She's quite...
Scott was left in his hotel overnight to sense information from the birth date. The next morning, Scott is asked to reveal his findings of the victim.
The first is when I see her. Her hair is really buffy. It's down to about here. Sort of browny hair, but quite buffy. I want to tie it up in pigtails. To me, she's in her 20s, but she looks younger. She could pass as someone who's probably a teenager. But I'd say she's probably in her earlier 20s rather than her later 20s. And from the energy that comes across from her, I'd have to say she's been dead more 10 years, probably a bit more than 10 years, probably 12 or 13 years from the energy that's there. So I'd probably say the early 1990s.
Sarah disappeared in 1990. Scott is now given a photograph of the victim.
Well, it's really interesting to see this photo because this is exactly as I see this girl. There's a uniform that I'm seeing and a train track, a train station. There's a red car associated with this case. I don't know if it's her car or someone else's, but there's a red car.
Sarah was wearing a sports uniform. She did have a red car that was parked at a train station.
Her car was found, but she wasn't found. It's not the best feeling at all, but I'd have to say there's probably a serial killer involved or someone who was killed before. And there's an Aboriginal name associated with it too. It's like a K name. I want to say Kersbrook because I'm from South Australia. There's a Kersbrook, Kanmantu. It's a name like that. So it's got to be an Aboriginal name. I'll figure it out. Don't come to Melbourne very often, but I stayed at a hotel on the peninsula at Frankston, and I'm feeling that hotel when I look at this girl. So I feel that the direction that I need to go in to track this girl down is towards the peninsula or towards Franklin. Frankston. And Franklin's a clue, you know, things... I wanted to say Frankston, something else comes out, so let's just keep the name Franklin out there. I think I know where she is. I can visualise this place, but I have to find it. So I have to let her lead me. The girl in the photo is very strong now, and one word in my head where she wants me to go is Frankston. So I think we should head there first. The reason why that name is so significant to me now, I'm not sure, but that's the point of the journey.
Scott leads the production team.
The reason why I know that we're going in the right direction is because if it was the wrong way, Sarah's energy would pull back. At the moment, she wants us to go to a particular place, and if we're heading in the right direction, her energy will be strong. The girl in the photo is now stepping forward with another girl. They've always been together, and I have 3 names here. One of the girls is either Kathy or Carol. That's a very strong name. And the other name that I have is Sarah. I feel that she was murdered and found, and the other girl is missing. And the strongest name overall that's coming forward is Sarah. A tennis racket, she's showing me a tennis racket or a tennis court, and yeah. I'm seeing a golf club and a tennis court and a tennis racket. Just other cryptic clues or symbology that she's showing me. The other thing that Sarah's showing me is a pedestrian overpass. There's a main road, there's a train station, and there's an overpass that I need to find. So there's a few things that she's showing me. It'll fall into place as we get further. In our everyday lives, we're all attuned to spirit in a very special way. Most people don't take much notice of things that are actually clues. I don't disregard anything. I learned a long time ago that you get information that comes across spiritually that will help and assist in whatever you're doing. And I can see the oddest things. I can have the oddest thought or see a sign, or I might see a fish. And it might be completely unrelated, so it seems at the time, to whatever I'm doing, but it'll end up being Fish Street or something to do with the ocean. You never know which way it will take you. We just passed a sign a moment ago which had the name Seaford up there. I know that we're going to, I want to say Franklin again, Frankston. The name Franklin is significant. That's a couple of times I've done that today. But as soon as I saw the sign Seaford, I felt that we were like almost there. The energy is getting quite strong now. Sarah's showing me the train line now, so it has to be around here. I'm seeing shops and houses and residential, but somewhere hidden behind here has got to be a train line. Those lights that we just went through, that was McClellan Street. That's important. Remember McClellan Street, we have to come back to that. And when I say the name McClellan, I feel the golf course or the tennis club. So maybe it's worth going back there later and seeing if there's a golf course and a tennis club on that road. Well, I kind of feel like we've almost gone too far. I feel, see, I don't know where I am, that's the thing. I have no sense of direction here. It's like when we hit Seaford, then the next town on is Frankston. And I felt that we didn't have to quite go to Frankston, but we obviously did, because McClellan, yeah, okay. McClellan was important. I almost feel like now that we're at Frankston that we've missed what I'm looking for. Like I'm looking for a train line and a train station, but it's not like Frankston train station. It's can man I'd like to follow the train line back to Seaford because I think we've come too far. I'm getting a much stronger feeling now too that we're heading in the right direction. But the Canman name, it's strong around here. I just got to find it. It's a train station. It's got to be a train station. Canman. On the main road, because when you're in a foreign place, you have no idea of where you are. If there's Seaford, if we've come from Melbourne and we were heading towards Seaford, and then Seaford goes to Frankston, I want to go in the middle, in there somewhere. That's where I want to be. There's the overpass. It's around here somewhere. There'll be another overpass. That's the... Well, Sarah's stepping forward now. Oh, fuck, there it is. Shit. Cananook. There's a red car, or sort of red. She was driving a car like that.
Next, the psychics unearth vital clues as they follow Sarah's last steps at Cananook Station.
She was going to her car, she got to her car, and it all happened then.
I see this other car coming in.
A cream-coloured Commodore.
She's just telling me I was snatched.
There's the overpass. It's around here somewhere. Well, Sarah's stepping forward now. Oh, fuck, there it is. Shit.
After successfully locating Cananook, Scott begins to sense clues into Sarah's disappearance. Debbie was placed on a train to retrace Sarah's last journey to Cananook.
Standing here on the bridge, this is a bright sunny day, but to me it was like she was coming back at night time. She'd been somewhere. Now I'm seeing the tennis racket again. She must have played sport. She must have been coming home from sport or whatever.
The psychics are never at Cananook at the same time.
At the moment, I actually feel she had a car left here. I feel I'm walking down to the car park, down the back end area, and I feel that as she was going down there, she was approached. I'm called to go down the stairs over here and then over in that back corner of the car park. Down here. I see her walking down from the stairs and coming across here.
And a car was in the car park, and that it was just lonely and deserted, or there weren't a lot of people around, and that's when it happened.
And I see this other car coming in. I feel there's actually 4 people in the car. And that's when they've stopped for directions. I see her stopped and talking to them, and actually, as I've walked down here, it's like I'm getting more information. I actually see her give them the directions and start to walk down to this corner to where a car was. It's weird. I don't know why I'm down here, but I feel like her car was parked up near where this green one, not the first green one, the second green one, near that pole. It's up around that area.
Debbie has pinpointed the exact position where Sarah's car was found by police.
She was going to her car, she got to her car, and it all happened then.
I feel like she had the keys in her hand and she was going to get into the car. Oh, she's dropped her keys.
It was a random act of violence that happened there.
She did scream, but it's very noisy here and I feel nobody really heard her. Something happened. It's around in this bend area is what I feel. And they've got a quick getaway because they can quickly just go straight out again. But she's telling me the keys were never found. They've got her bag. It's like there's a sign of a struggle, but I can't see where she's bleeding from, but I'm just being shown. She's making me want to look on the ground and feel, you know, it's like that there was a sign that something happened.
They would have found evidence of a struggle or something around the car because there is that strong feeling. She's not showing me that, nor do I want to see it, but I have the feeling.
Next to her car, there was a large stain on the ground that appeared to be blood.
Hands around the throat, strangulation. I see a knife.
Oh, okay, and then they're showing me a knife. She's showing me blood was up around this area, but she's just telling me I was snatched. I feel she was alive when they put her in the car. I keep hearing she cut her arm when she was struggling, so it's something to do with the, you know, fighting, trying not to get into the car. I think they took her to another site.
She was injured here and taken elsewhere. Her physical stuff, like a car and maybe other items of hers, were here, but she's gone. Someone has definitely seen something that hasn't come forward. And there's also the name either Donald or Ronald associated with that. It can be first or last name. Ron, Don, Ronnie, Donnie, Ronald or Donald. It would also be worthwhile taking notice of anyone who could remember seeing a cream-coloured Commodore. They used to frequent this railway station around the time that Sarah disappeared as well. It's one of the early 80s, like an 81 or 82 model Commodore. I don't know the exact initials that go before that make. And it had a rattly exhaust at the back that used to rattle and blow a bit of smoke. So that's what we're looking for. That's one of the missing keys. There'll be other ones, but that's the main one, is the cream-coloured Commodore.
Now, with the victim, I don't know. Like I was saying before, her name starts with an S. It could be Sandra. It's an S, definitely an S sound. I feel that her remains could be near a dam because I'm sensing water around and I'm also seeing reeds and it's like there's ducks. It's like fresh water. It's not salt water.
This whole area, there's more than just one tragic murder that's taken place here. It's quite an overpowering feeling, and it's like somewhere around here, someone else was taken.
Sarah McDiarmid is not Kananook's only victim. Young mother Debbie Freem was abducted by serial killer Paul Denyer less than 500 metres from where Scott is standing. Another of Denyer's victims, Natalie Russell, was also murdered less than a kilometre from Kananook Station. Debbie is now taken to the house where Sarah lived, but Scott has his own plans.
On the McClelland Road that we passed, I'd like to go back to that location. There's actually something else that I'm looking for, and it's either a recycling station or a rubbish dump or something to do with that. I'd like to find that.
Next, the psychic search intensifies and the mystery of Sarah's disappearance unravels.
You got more than one person in this place.
I feel that he was actually stalking her and used to watch her through this back window.
People have just come in through here and just gone and dumped, wrapped things up in garbage bags and that and put it all amongst the rubbish. This is where the police need to look, is here.
Psychics Debbie and Scott have both left Kananook Station. Debbie travels to the house where Sarah lived, while Scott leads the production team to the location of a map he has drawn. Scott's map is a remarkably accurate representation of the area around McClellan Drive.
So we're heading towards this recycling centre and rubbish dump now. This is definitely the right area. It's very symbolic that as soon as we've rolled up here to check this place out, that one of the workmen has come out and actually closed the gates. It's almost like, don't look behind here. If you look behind here, you'll find something that you haven't been meant to find so far or whatever. It's like there's a secret behind these gates, but we can see through it. There's something about this area. I don't want to be disrespectful in any way that I say it, but it's like a dumping ground. You got more than one person in this place. There's someone through there too. This whole place is riddled with it. We weren't recyclable 14 years ago. We were just come and dump your rubbish and pay $5 for a trailer full. It's that type of sit. People have just come in through here and just gone and dumped. Wrapped things up in garbage bags and that and put it all amongst the rubbish. That's what's happened. And that's why there's no telltale signs, because if you bring someone to a place like this, there are other things that cover up what you've done. Other smells and sounds, and people don't go looking, they just, if anything, again, I'm trying not to be disrespectful to Sarah, but when someone dies, it's not pleasant. It gets very unpleasant straight away. So somewhere like this, but it's been used by other people for the same reason. You're in the right area, guys, I tell you. This is where the police need to look, is here.
Debbie arrives at the house where Sarah lived.
My feeling is they've long gone, so I feel her parents may have moved. I don't know that this is her family. I don't feel like it. She's saying they've long gone. The horror upset them too much and couldn't live here anymore.
The McDiarmid family moved interstate less than a year after Sarah disappeared.
It was very hard for her when her parents moved because she didn't know where they went, and that was sort of upset her. It's taken a while to find them, she's saying.
Walking around the train station, my impressions of a suspect is certainly that he was somewhat overweight, younger, dark hair, and liked to use a knife. Like to strangle and use a knife. The energy of this person was so strong around the railway station that I feel that he used to either frequent it or live nearby. It's such a strong, like he was very familiar with it. It's the white, it's the cream Commodore. That's your missing key. It's someone who... I'm sorry. Oh, fuck. And there's the fat guy. Why am I thinking of John Denver? Take me home, country roads. Symbolic. It's a P name. Peter, Patrick, Paul. Sarah's telling me he's in jail.
Scott has identified Paul Denyer, a notorious serial killer who frequented Cananook. Author Vicky Botrytis became an expert on Paul Denyer when she wrote a factual account of his serial killings in her book, The Frankston Murders.
Paul Denyer was a 21-year-old man convicted in 1995 of killing 3 women in Frankston over a period of 7 weeks.
Relatives of the victims were in court today to hear prosecutor Nigel Parkinson recount the terror suffered by each before she died. The court was told Denyer's crimes were premeditated and he was a calculating killer.
The community was absolutely terrified at the time. It was known as the Frankston murders.
Always wanted to kill.
Since when?
Since I was about 14.
Well, what do you think that is? Why did it take you up until... Is Elizabeth Stevens the first person you've ever killed?
Yeah. Number one.
Why do you think it's taken so long? You've always felt these urges since you were, as you said, 14.
I don't know, just waiting for the right time. Waiting for that small silent alarm to trigger me off.
The similarities between Denya's 3 victims that we know of and Sarah McDiarmid is that Denya was very good at snatching them and then taking them somewhere else. Their bodies weren't left out in the open. There was an element of hiding them.
This is the area where
she was murdered.
In here. Yeah. You took her through this hole?
Yeah.
During his homicide interview, the detective asked Denya whether or not he was responsible for Sarah McDiarmid. Denya denied it, but then again he denied being responsible for the 3 victims for many hours until they finally said, "We have evidence that links you to them." But with Sarah McDiarmid, there was no evidence that would link him, apart from saying it certainly fitted with the way that he killed. The stalking, the snatching and grabbing, given that he was, well and truly upset at the time, and every night he was out wandering, you might ask yourself, why wouldn't it have been him? In 1990, Paul was 17. He was going through a very traumatic period. Paul had accused his older brother of some form of sexual assault. He was certainly very, very tense, and things were not good for him in 1990. Paul is serving a life sentence in prison with a 30-year minimum.
When you have a look at each of those murders and how they occurred and how they were perpetrated, you would have to look at Paul Denya as a suspect for Sarah McDiarmid.
Next, an intriguing twist when Scott asks to return to Kananook urgently. And a team of private investigators examine the psychic leads.
Why am I thinking of John Denver? Symbolic.
Scott has identified Paul Denya, a notorious serial killer who frequented Kananook. Scott flies back to Melbourne 10 days later. He asks the production team to take him back to Kananook Station without disclosing his reasons why. On arrival at Kananook, Scott has one pressing question.
Did the John Denver man that I've picked up on, or we've nicknamed him John Denver, is it known by the police that he used to frequent this station on some kind of level? Because I feel his car here and I feel him here. Can you confirm that to me?
The production team answered yes. What Scott doesn't know is that Paul Denya actually lived less than 300 metres from Kananook Station.
His whole energy is here. But I can't associate his energy to this case. If he had been involved, I do not believe that she would still be missing. I believe that she would have already been found, or been found very quickly. There's just parts of this don't fit the John Denver Paul guy. It just doesn't fit. I can't make it fit. I believe that Sarah was attacked by a gang of people, that there was a group of people that the names Ronnie and Donnie are associated with.
Scott picked up on the names Ronnie and Donnie on his first trip to Kananook.
It can be first or last name. Ron, Don, Ronnie, Donnie, Ronald or Donald. There was a woman associated with that as well. I can draw you a picture of the main guy that I feel was associated with the case. I still feel that this was a random act. I do feel that Sarah was seen at the station before. But this group of people used to hang around the station. and they're a bit drugged or stoned or boozed or whatever, and were willing to take a bit of a chance. How Sarah was taken from here is because there was more than one person involved. One person just did not drag her away and take her away. I do believe that knives were involved, that there was blood at the scene or whatever. And see, when someone is stoned or off their face, they're not going to gently take you. They will cut you because they're not coordinated properly. It was just one of those things where I think that people were a bit off their face, tanked or stoned, and just one thing led to another. The cream-coloured Commodore that I came up with before 10 days ago is still the strongest link to the whole thing. I believe that it's a car that is owned by the gang members at the time. She was taken in the Commodore with a Ratley exhaust. Why I needed to come back to the bridge today was to see if the feelings that I've had since we were here 10 days ago could be verified. I had a feeling that somebody stood on the bridge on the night that Sarah disappeared and saw something. It would be very interesting to check out the local pubs around here. There doesn't appear to be one that's close by, but there's got to be a drinking hole around here somewhere. Here's the clue. This guy's name is either Chalky or Baldy or Charlie or Chucky or someone like that. He's an older guy, probably in his 60s, one of those quiet, reserved guys that sits down the pub and has a chat with everyone and goes, "You know, fellas, I saw something the night that girl disappeared." And everyone goes, "Of course you did, Chalky, Charlie, whatever your name is. Have another beer." Locals will know this man. He's a guy that they've just sort of gone, "Oh, yeah, you know, he's always got a story to tell." He actually did have a story to tell. And people have heard the story, but they've disregarded it. He saw what went on. Someone's going to know this guy, and they're going to say, "Yeah, it was those bastard gang members." I do feel that a couple of the gang members are probably dead now, but the energy of those still alive that were involved with Sarah's disappearance or know what happened to her, I still do feel that there's at least one or two main people that are still alive that could be held accountable for Sarah's disappearance.
In response to his offer to draw the perpetrator, Scott is asked to create an exact identikit of Sarah's killer using the latest computer imaging program.
Is to start with his hair, and I really feel that it's very spiky, a little like he's trapped in the 80s. Too straggly. No, too buffy. One before. That's pretty close. That almost looks like an alien, doesn't it? We need some eyebrows. To me, he's not a smiley person. He's a real sort of, he's looking through you, sort of moody, broody. So the eyes need to be a little bit more brooding than that. They're a little bit feminine. Yes, that's it.
Excellent. Okay, nose.
Try that one where it's a bit fuller at the end. What about this one up here? Very sort of thin lips, not full. So the sides of his face are a little bit too fat around here. If you could just trim that down a little bit. Yep, that's it. Now with the chin, if you can just square it up slightly, it's just a little bit rounded, a little bit lined around here. Can you add lines there without changing that? Sure. But I need someone who has hair down here as well, so that it just in the middle steps forward a little bit. Yeah, that's it, just a little bit more thinner than that. And I just need to add a couple of lines around the mouth. What does that look like with the hair? Not this one, the one before. That's pretty close.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it, that's exactly right. That's exactly how I see him. This is Donnie.
Next, a team of private investigators examine the psychic leads.
And we've uncovered some new evidence in the Sarah McDiarmid case.
Psychics have provided some intriguing leads, but to crack the case, hard evidence is required. Former Detective Anthony Weems heads a team of private investigators. Using conventional methods, they have investigated the psychic leads and produced some cold, hard facts.
My team has been investigating the psychic's leads, and we've uncovered some new evidence in the Sarah McDiarmid case.
I do feel that somebody who stood on the bridge saw and heard what was happening to Sarah on the night. It would be very interesting to check out the local pubs around here. This guy's name is either Chalky or Baldy or Charlie or Chucky or someone like that.
We visited the local pubs in the area in search of a person matching Scott's description, and we spoke to a woman at the Seaford RSL who'd worked there for 20 years. She said there was actually an old guy called Bertie who used to go there, and that he always maintained that he knew where Sarah was buried.
We are unable to follow Scott's leads any further, as Bertie is now deceased.
I want to say Franklin again. Frankston? The name Franklin is significant.
We found a Franklin court in the area and discovered that in July 1990, when Sarah disappeared, there was a community correction centre only metres from Franklin Court. Now, this centre supervised offenders who were on parole. It's still operational, but has now moved in the last 3 years.
Scott's information on the name Franklin could be a strong lead in the case,
but due to privacy laws, we're unable to obtain any documents as to who attended in July 1990.
I believe that Sarah was attacked by a gang of people.
I think there was a number of them. I don't think there was just one.
There was a gang of druggies that used to frequent Cannonook Station in 1990 when Sarah disappeared.
The psychics described the gang with incredible accuracy.
There was a woman associated with that as well.
There was a woman in the gang, a notorious prostitute and drug addict by the name of Jodie Jones. Jodie'd already been convicted of manslaughter after jumping on a man's chest whilst wearing a pair of stiletto heels.
Jodie Jones had an alibi on the night Sarah was attacked.
According to police statements, Jodie Jones' alibi was that she'd stayed at the home of a female friend. We decided to double-check that alibi as part of our investigation. After an extensive search, we found Jodie's friend and questioned her. She told us that she could not be 100% sure that Jodie stayed with her on the night that Sarah disappeared. Now, according to police statements, on the night that Jodie did stay at her friend's place,
Jodie said she'd just been at Cannonook and had seen police.
Now, this is significant because the police did not arrive in force at Cannonook until the night after Sarah disappeared. Jodie's alibi is therefore seriously flawed.
Can you hear L sounds? I don't. Linda, Leanne. It's like an L.
There was a Leanne who was an inmate in prison with Jodie Jones. Leanne says that Jodie confided in her and admitted to killing Sarah, but that the police would never be able to charge her because they would never find the body. Jodie Jones died of a drug overdose 1 year after Sarah disappeared.
With Scott and Debbie both clearly describing the Jodie Jones gang,
we decided to track down and question the remaining gang members.
I do feel that a couple of the gang members are probably dead now, but I still do feel that there's at least one or two main people that are still alive.
It was incredibly difficult to track down the gang members because they aren't recorded anywhere. They're not on the electoral roll or any public records, and they go to great lengths not to be traced. Fortunately, Scott and Debbie gave us some names.
A member of the gang has the name Paul, first or last name.
Scott is correct.
A number of our sources confirm that there was a Paul in Jodie's gang, Paul Hudspeth, nicknamed Paul the Dwarf. We've been able to ascertain that Paul the Dwarf drove an old cream or white coloured Holden sedan.
The car's either a cream or white.
The cream-coloured Commodore that I came up with before 10 days ago is still the strongest link to the whole thing. I believe that it's a car that is owned by the gang members at the time with the Ratley exhaust.
Witness statements do confirm that a car matching this description was spotted at the station the night Sarah disappeared. However, we understand that some years ago, Paul gassed himself to death.
And there's also the name Donald or Ronald associated with that. Can be first or last name. Ron, Don, Ronnie, Donnie, Ronald or Donald.
We can confirm that there was a Donnie associated with Jodie Jones. Donnie was seen with Jodie at Cannonook Station on the night Sarah disappeared.
And the head one was called, his nickname's Rat, or could be Rat Tail. This is showing me, the rat's tail on the hair.
Debbie's description matches with a gang member. There was a man by the name of Ratford associated with the gang.
A lot of the clues to Sarah and other cases are right here. It's always been right under their nose. This is where the police need to look, is here.
The Frankston tip was fully operational in 1990. Frankston City Council have said that there was a supervisor present directing people to the appropriate landfill areas where they could dispose of their rubbish.
We considered at one stage of searching the Frankston tip. I considered at that stage that as there was no really strong information in relation to the tip, that it was an area that we could spend a lot of time there with a lot of resources that could be more gainfully employed elsewhere. To dig up a tip is like looking for a needle in a haystack.
I took Scott back to the tip in the hope that he would be able to pinpoint the exact location where Sarah's body is.
Next, Scott and Anthony returned to the old Frankston tip in search of Sarah's remains. Scott and Anthony arrive on the site of the old Frankston tip.
Well, I have to say, this northeastern corner, to actually come here and stand here, this still has the strongest energy of Sarah here. It's right here. Sarah's energy is right here.
The area Scott pinpointed was active 14 years ago when Sarah disappeared. One method of locating human remains is known as ground penetrating radar, or GPR. It detects disturbances in the soil. However, as tips are composed entirely of disturbed soil and other materials, GPR is unfortunately not an option in this case. Based on the accuracy of the psychic's leads, we put forward a request to the Frankston City Council to excavate the area Scott pinpointed. They responded in writing. The former tip site covers an area of more than 10 hectares. It closed in late 1990. The area has been revegetated into bushland and a methane flaring program is underway over a vast section of the land. This collection and flare system has just been installed at a cost of $350,000. The system is designed to collect methane generated by the buried waste and burn it to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. If a body had been dumped in 1990, it would be likely to be at least 20 metres down under concrete and building waste, tonnes of green waste as well as putrescible waste. Any excavation and exposure of the buried waste would be extremely dangerous. Faced with an enormous environmental catastrophe, we decided to pursue another vital lead.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly right. That's exactly how I see him. This is Donnie.
Armed with Scott's image of the gang member Donnie, we discovered a witness who claims that she saw Jodie, Donnie and Ratford at Cannonook Station on the night that Sarah disappeared. Shortly after 10 p.m, this witness saw the three of them follow a girl matching Sarah's description to the far end of the car park and attack her. The witness heard Jodie screaming.
She's dead! What have you done? She's dead!
The witness received a threatening letter telling her to keep her mouth shut, and she retracted her statement to the police. We tracked this witness down, but despite repeated requests, she refused to speak to us either on or off camera. The psychics have provided some vital new leads into Sarah's disappearance and the people responsible for her murder. Police have publicly stated that Victoria Police Homicide Squad deals in factual evidence and investigates accordingly. They do not employ the services of clairvoyants and psychics. If you have any information in regards to the psychic's findings, or if you recognise this person, log on to www.10.com.au/sensing murder. If you have any information on Sarah McDiarmid's disappearance, which is not related to the psychics, please contact Crime Stoppers on 1800 333 000.
In the early stages of the investigation, the Victorian government offered a reward which was supplemented by an anonymous donor. Since then, the government have raised that reward to $1 million. Now, I would hope that that very, very large sum might loosen the tongue of somebody out there who knows what happened. The hardest thing I did in this investigation was go around and see Peter and Sheila and tell them that it was my belief that Sarah was dead. It was my belief then, it still is, that Sarah was murdered. I had a long conversation with Peter and Sheila in relation to this, but Sheila and Peter, I think too, still hold out that glimmer that one day she'll come in. I don't believe that that's the case, but I can't take that away from them.
Sarah McDiarmid was just 23 years old when her life was so violently taken. For all the people who knew and loved Sarah, their lives can never be the same.
On the Sunday before she disappeared, the boys were working out on her car, and she and I were indoors doing some of the chores, and we had the music on. And I said to her, the boys won't hear it, rewind it and play that one again, because I just love that one. And she just laughed, and I've got that tape. When I have a bad day, I like to be able to shut the doors of the house if I'm on my own and put that on, and I really like to give that go. And I have to have that sometimes, and I have to pick a time when you don't annoy neighbours or anything, but it's just another way to try and sort of cope.
July the 11th was a very bad day for us, and in many ways every day since then has been a bit like July the 11th.
Most people can still relate. They can look back, think, and the time just goes along, and they remember what happened 2 years ago or 5 years ago, and when they went here or went there. But to us, it's just a blur. Just a blur. And it's, as a friend said, yeah, that's because you've just survived for the past 14 years, yeah.